What is up, guys? Welcome to the All In Poker Podcast with Bad Beat Bryce and Ryan the Rock. Ryan, how you doing this fine Thursday?
Oh my goodness, I'm feeling good, man. I figured out what my tax return is, and it's feels good, man, to have some money back from the government. I'm on a nice upswing in poker right now. The first one, I've had the booked 3 winning months in a row now.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, speaking of taxes, I had a 5-digit pay, and we will be having a CPA on in, I believe, 2 weeks. So we've got a treat for you guys for people who have significant source of income or just amateurs as well. Right. But yeah, Ryan, I'm really excited to see your little bit of uptick. I know even a few months ago, a few weeks ago, went through some struggles. Not even like questioning your game per se, but more so just the mental side of it. And I think that brings us into the book that you want to recommend. Really cool. That's provided you with a ton of insight, comfort, all that good stuff. And one of the things that I've been recently stressing to my students is the importance of mental game, and both before and after. Well, obviously the review is important, whether it be hand histories or even just a poker diary. If you're not much of a writer, you could do something as simple as the suggestion of writing how you ran and how you played, just to kind of have that accountability for yourself. But do you want to do a quick synopsis?
Yeah, let me just give you an elevator speech. Because if you've heard the mentality thing and you're like, that's a bunch of mumbo jumbo, doesn't mean anything, doesn't matter, that is probably a problem. If you've said things like, oh God, I just run so bad in these spots, I never win in here. If you said things like, oh, this guy sucks out on me all the time, I hate it when the fish sucks out on me, those pieces of tilt and those things that pull away from your gameplay were one of the things that I really think was a big leak for me in 2020 that I wasn't even thinking about because I was so focused on learning spots and drilling on pre-flop things and figuring out when to check raise and stuff, and I wasn't thinking about my mentality. And the book discusses how there's 4 phases of learning something. You go from unconscious incompetence, where you have no idea what you're doing, so how would you even know if you're doing it wrong, to unconscious competence, where you kind of know what you're doing. Then you go to conscious competence, where you know you're pretty damn good at what you're doing. You have to think about it. And then the final point is unconscious competence. Think about like now, driving a car, for instance. When you first started to now, when you first started, you probably didn't take your 2 hands off the wheel or your eyes off of the road. And now you could probably, drive with 1 foot. So it's about getting to that point. And one of the things I really struggled with that I didn't think about, and now I think is a really big key thing for newer poker players, is stress in tough situations, in big pots, where what was happening to me and what I didn't realize, and now in retrospect when I look back, is that I was not thinking about all of the things that were happening. I was zeroing in on particular details, on, I'm getting 5 to 1 here. Like, come on, 5 to 1, just the price. I'm not thinking about, this is an under the gun open, I 3-bet, he 4-bet me pre, and now we're in the spot on the river on an ace high board where I have kings. Like, no, you should not. If you think about it and you put together the history of the hand, that's a fold.
It took some getting yelled at to get there, but
right. So there's my elevator pitch. I highly recommend you pick up The Mental Game of Poker. If you make it through the first chapter, I promise you won't be able to put the book down.
Ryan's still working on getting out of phase 1, but no, in all seriousness, really, he's absolutely loved it.
Only scratching the surface here right now, literally.
Oh, that's hilarious. The other thing that we wanted to talk about in our poker news segment is, I'm sure everyone is aware of the Phil Hellmuth versus Daniel Negreanu heads up sit and go matches, which parallel what Antonio Esfandiari and Phil did. So Ryan and I actually have a side bet going on. Ryan took Phil Hellmuth while I took the side of Daniel Negreanu. And I'm sure I watched more hands yesterday than you did, Ryan. But I think that Phil Hellmuth just played like such a massive freaking nit. And I honestly don't think he played well. I am going to give you a flop hand from yesterday that I want you to think about. So the flop is ace 8-7, and Daniel is the pre-flop aggressor, and he has ace 10, and he leads.
One quarter pot, and he shoves 38 bigs in.
That's 1/4 pot, and Phil Hellmuth with ace 7, with 2 pair on a 3-to flush board, just puts in 32 big blinds, and Daniel gets away from top pair. That easy. I think this really reminds me of the hand that we saw where Doug Polk. I think this is like maybe not as bad, but the hand with Doug Polk where he literally got him off the nuts. He plays scared poker essentially. He picks up these massive hands, and if you've played with Phil, which Daniel has a ton, and you see these massive raises, the vast majority of the time he has it. And also, Phil just ran this weird triple barrel with jacks on a king high flop.
Yeah, I saw that one.
That wasn't as bad, but what do you think, Daniel? Yeah, still, the sizing was more questionable than the decision to triple barrel. His sizings were horrible. And I'm not, obviously Phil Hellmuth is a very capable player, but I would be absolutely shocked if Negreanu doesn't come out and end up winning this series. I just think he's the better heads-up player. And I don't want to shit on Phil Hellmuth. I think he's a very good, competent player. And he's been a winning player for very long, and primarily tournament poker. I think if this were also cash game and not sit-and-go format, that Daniel's edge would increase even more, which we've talked about as well. Right. But I'm interested to see how it plays out. I wish PokerGo didn't charge so much. Luckily, I have a subscription. But I think it's ridiculous how much they charge, and it's very much a barrier to entry in terms of people looking for poker content. While you have these vlogs from these guys, you can't just go back. We've talked about this a few times on the podcast, but PokerGo charges too high. Do you have anything else to talk about on the match?
Yeah, I mean, here's what I'll say. The Phil Hellmuth fans on Twitter today are waking up and saying, you know what the name Larry starts with? L. And that's pretty much what they're saying. So I agree with you. To the degree that people aren't analyzing the poker and are just saying, well, he won. Yes, like I can blindly say, oh yeah, Phil Hellmuth won round 1. He'll be good for round 2. But I would be dumb to say that. Because I think even though he made a really incredible comeback, and that was really fun to watch. Like I watched the second half from the small stack on, where he started playing better. Because I've heard like the first half was where a lot of atrocities occurred. What's up, TJ? Good to see you, man. And yeah, so I totally agree. And I think Daniel Negreanu is gonna analyze the crap out of this and come back in round 2. So I'll be very curious. If Daniel runs him over in round 2, I think I might be in trouble. But yeah,
I mean, I'm not saying he's going to run him over by any means. I just think he has the edge over the long run, like a fairly significant edge, to be honest with you. So I was happy to get in at even odds against you. And even though he lost the first round, I have complete faith that he's going to turn it around and pull the dub. But that's some pretty good discussion on that. If you guys ever want to talk about the match, feel free to hit me up, comment on this video. We'd love to hear your thoughts. But without further ado, Ryan, would you like to introduce our amazing guests?
Absolutely. So tonight on the All In Poker podcast, we are excited to present a guest who knows his way around a commentating booth. From humble beginnings in Pottsville, Iowa, he has worn many hats as a debt collector, DJ, basketball coach, and now broadcaster for TCH Live, as well as collegiate and high school sports. Mike Jungblut is establishing a name for himself as an incredibly friendly, engaging host for games and sports streams alike. Be sure to follow him on Twitter to get the occasional clip of him calling a bomb home run. And without further ado, let's welcome Mike to the All In podcast.
Hey, there we are. I can see you guys. How we doing?
Pretty good. How you doing?
Not bad. I mean, I grew up in Postville, but that's all right. Pottsville, we got that all the time. So
Ryan.
No problem.
Pokes versus Pots.
Yeah, I mean, it's Iowa. We're glad when people just kind of know who we are every once in a while. So it's okay.
I mean, Connecticut's kind of the same way, so I get what you're saying.
Yeah, rural life, it has its ups and downs, but just I'm proud of where I'm from regardless. So
that's awesome. Well, we're very excited to get into this interview, and I must say you have an amazing commentator's voice. I'd like to say basically built for it. While I've listened to you before, some of our viewers may have not. So we'll talk about a little bit about who you commentate for and all that good stuff. Ryan, do you want to kick us off with questions?
Yeah, I wanted to get us kicked off by going back a little bit. So back in the day, I grew up kind of like you, watching Sportscenter every morning before school. And that's really how I built a passion for commentating, and it was always my dream to be one of the color commentators on Sportscenter. Could you tell us the story of Miss Olafson that got you into commentating sports and poker?
Wow, you guys went really intense on my social media stuff. So, I probably had an idea like you watching it that I was like, yeah, this is what I would love to do. I ramble on and on. I can make jokes. Certainly surrounded by sports. So, I just like a lot of great teachers will have you do, will write stuff down to outline, okay, where do you really want to go in life? Which, when you're 6th, 7th grade, like that thought process is so far removed from,
right,
I just got to get through my day. Whereas, the older I get, the longer term I start thinking. So one of the exercises she had was to write a letter to yourself and like, don't open it until 2025. I clearly jumped the gun on that. And as I was back home during Christmas time, I'm bored, nothing to do on Christmas Eve night. I'm just kind of going through all these papers, and I find one that is like, I want to be if I want to be a sportscaster, I got to be capable of reading notes, either an agent or a coach. Like, kind of putting it all out there, and at least was beginning of that path, that light bulb of like, you know what, I can actually do this. So. In real life, you don't always. I think now that I look back at it too, that to want to try to go get out of your hometown and go be somebody in the world, like that's a lot more challenging to think, because you can get really bogged down into thinking like, it's not going to happen for me. But I was pretty lucky to be surrounded by a lot of really good people.
That's really interesting. Yeah, and Pottsville it's a small town. It's only a couple thousand people, right?
Yeah. And it was the home of one of the largest immigration rates in U.S. history back in like 2008. So when this country started kind of going through globalization and immigration, like there was a lot of factories and meatpacking plants that were trying to get labor. So we had this influx of people from all around the world that moved. Like I had classmates that were from Ukraine, from Russia, Mexico, Guatemala. And like, if I had lived 5 miles down the road, I would probably like have a totally different outlook. Like we would be talking about how I think Busch Light is great. Toby Keith is American genius. No, but I grew up in a place that I got to see at least some portion of a worldview that I could kind of be thankful for now, is to be like, okay, I think it helped me turn into like a reasonable person that had some perspective as to what may or may not be going in the world. So
I guess my follow-up to this original question is also, I wanted to know about the first time you were in the booth. If I recall correctly, you're 17 years old and you had to beg your way to commentating on the local radio show.
Yeah. So I was a junior to about to be a senior during the summertime in Iowa, where they do the high school baseball season and softball. So like there was a local radio station, just like a really small town public radio station, that I was like, dude, I can do this. So we had a cell phone, a really small like mixer board, and a couple of headsets, and we called back into the studio, and I would do play-by-play for my high school baseball team. So, guys I grew up with that I'd known probably since I was like 3, 4, or 5. And the first game we ever did was against a school called Lansing Key High, which has now the all-time leader in wins in high school baseball history. So, they were a historic program that had like history like the 30s, 40s, and 50s. Like it's certainly during that time, but an iconic place in our area, because we have number 1 and number 2 all-time leader in wins, like 30 miles from each other up in this the really rural part of North. So like, if you're 17 years old, you're looking at it and going like, oh my God, this is a big game. And I listened to the recording of it, and I couldn't believe how nice people were to me at the beginning of it, because that's like, it's a little rough, like as it should be for 17. But it was there. So like, at least I could kind of understand, okay, this is how far I've come from to all the stuff that I'm doing now. So, like, everybody always said once I had a lot of potential, and I was like, yeah, you're just kind of being nice. But then over time, I just kind of stuck with it.
If that recording still exists,
Yeah, I mean,
you're gonna have to share a little snippet of it on Twitter.
I don't even know if I'm
The wheels are turning.
It's on literally a cassette tape in my parents' basement back in Iowa. So
wow.
I try not to. I mean, like, literally, that's where all some of my first broadcasts are all on like cassettes. So, but
that's so cool.
What's that?
That's really cool.
Yeah. I mean, like, when I went to broadcast school, like in 2008 or 2007, like, we were trained on all the most antiquated, like, 8-tracks and all these other cassettes and things to, like, not that we think the industry's going this way, but you may get hired by a station that will want you to know this stuff. So I had a really wide background. I didn't know would pay off into something later, that it was just like, no, I took it seriously as a profession because I learned from a lot of really smart people that, like, okay, maybe I could pull this off, but life takes you all the heck over the place.
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds like you got a lot of exposure at a young age, which is pretty cool to say. And even if you the first time didn't go so great, I'm pretty sure everyone, whatever they do at a young age, it doesn't go so great.
It
was
awesome. Good. I mean, for like 17 years old, like, it was good. Like, I'm kind of judging it harshly at like 34, going, okay, let's vary up the tone and the tempo, and like, why do you keep saying the same term over and over again? So it's like,
I had to remove.
I'm like, God, Mikey, why are you doing this? So,
I had to absolutely remove my first poker vlog I ever made because it was so cringeworthy, and the hand analysis was just not there.
And
they tried to convert it to the channel. I was like, no, we are not bringing it over.
Yeah,
but yeah, I can imagine how it was a little rough around the edges, to say the least. But that's awesome. The next question we have for you is: we know you spend a ton of time behind the booth, but what sort of experience do you have on the poker felt? What stakes do you play, if any, and where do you frequent?
Let's see. It's being a poker dealer and commentator. It's a little bit like being a bartender to a degree. That it's like, once I have my free time, like, I just don't kind of want to go back to the bars that I work at. So
that makes sense.
Usually when the sports season's done and I have my summers free, that's typically when I'm playing pretty low stakes tournaments for the most part, which here in the Austin area, you can bank some pretty good tournaments for pretty low costs. My poker background was, I started in about 2004, 2005, a freshman year of college. I got addicted to party poker and Poker Stars, had no idea what I was doing, thought I was good, and started just kind of making friends online and from people back home that were continuing to grow, and I thought were like legitimately good players. So I was pretty much all poker all the time, 2004, 2008. Took some time off of it. I got into broadcast school, went and did a FM radio station job for a while. Things fell apart there. I had a buddy that was working for a bookie in the Wisconsin area and a game runner. So like he was just hosting games 2, 3, 4 times a week. I auditioned to play for this guy by playing a fixed limit Omaha high-low tournament that I won on Poker Stars when I was down to like my last $20 to my name, and he's like, "Yeah, you want to come up here to Wisconsin?" Like, I got nothing to lose, so I wound up playing in underground games in Wisconsin, even just like 1-2 to 2-5 to 5-5 no limit. And I was a crap no limit player back then, so my primarily was a 10-20 and limit hold'em and Omaha high-low. So that was back then a game that I think a lot more people played. And then and then I just was getting unhappy. I wasn't running, I wasn't enjoying it. So after a stretch of about 5 years, I was just like, I was done coaching baseball in the summer of 2015. Just threw my crap in a car, went to Austin, got an Airbnb for a week, and just had figured it out. So I did not even get back into poker until I was just playing free rolls in a bar in a town outside of Austin called Kyle. I was just playing free rolls just because I didn't know where the heck to play. And then all of a sudden, I find out the Texas Card House exists, and I'm like, okay, I can definitely get a job here, and that kind of started off where we are now.
Yeah, wow, what a story.
This leads into the next question, though, which is really nice. So, can you tell us the story of your doppelganger by name, Brett Jungblut, and how your kind of unlikely friendship led to you getting even more involved in poker?
That was great because Gang, as he was in the crew, Scott Fishman, Dutch Boyd, and all that, and that's what like threw my mind to poker, and I saw it on TV. I'm like, I've never met anybody with the same last name. I get to know him online a little bit. I find him playing at a table. I'm like, dude, my last name's Jungblut, and like he gave like some contact info. Started chatting, and he was starting a training site. Sheets, you guys remember Sheets was kind of involved with it a little bit, and another local pro at that time were literally doing like the first, what I can remember of like video conferencing. So like what's pretty common now is you get in a group chat, and this was like 2005, 2006 or so. Get in a group chat channel, talk about hands, talk about strategy. He would do like live teaching sessions, and right, he's just like, no, I seem to like peer, have a membership, so that was kind of like this little community that I, at least it started kind of getting the brain going enough that okay, that's kind of where some of the progress and the passion came from. And that's, some of the first poker podcasts I can recall listening to, and then Live at the Bike too, which to me, remembering being there in 2005 in my bedroom watching Live at the Bike, which Bart Hansen was hosting back then, and then fast forward 16 years later, or not how many, I'm not great at math, which Bart and I are doing TCH Live. It's just so far removed from my reality that it kind of messes with me sometimes as to like, how did this happen, man?
That's crazy. Well, it's awesome to see your trajectory, and glad you got back into the poker community, as you're definitely one of my favorite commentators personally, and I'm sure that resonates with a lot of other people. But so my favorite question to ask people is, what is the craziest thing that you have seen in a casino? I am sure that you have seen a ton of things on stream. So I'm really looking for crazy player behavior over a bad beat story. But does any certain event or story come to mind?
As a dealer, you must have seen something.
Well, now there's two stories. There's like a share of like the craziest thing I've ever seen commentating wise or in the booth. And with one, we had a good friend of mine that I had joined to co-host the Monday 5-5 stream at that point, and he's decided a little bit of gambling his own. So not even realizing at first that it's happening, that he's texting with a friend and doing $500 red or black on the flop of the actual live stream. So, I mean, our stuff is faced away from us on the other side of the live thing. So he has no knowledge of what's happening. Just like, okay, on this flop here, black. He gets stuck like a lot for 500. And he just continues to run really bad. But after the last one went against him, he stormed out of the studio and left for like the final hour and a half of the show. And we decided to double down and get back to even and then win. Or just came out like slightly ahead. I won't say his name. Fan, we love him. We miss him. He's not as much in the poker anymore. That, as was happening, was one of the funniest things to see his rate. He stormed out the studio. I was just like, how could you possibly lose in the common booth? It's not possible.
That's so funny.
DJ out of the booth.
He's a one of a kind guy for stuff like that. For longer, the one that stuck out of my memory in the chat, like I played in that 10-20 limit hold'em, limit Omaha 8 or better that this book he ran out in Wisconsin, and like when you're running a private game, like you're always just gonna have kind of oddballs that just happen to kind of pop in and try to gamble. Well, we have this guy that lives in this town out in rural Wisconsin called the Milkman, and that was literally who it was. He was a milk delivery driver, old school, small scale, a little bit of a character, bearded, kind of like mid-50s, kind of a degenerate. Hey, I don't know what else I've been on. Sweetheart of a human being, terrible poker player. So, like, as people tend to do, I think in private games, hey, they get stuck to the book. Hey, I'll get you 500 here on my blah blah blah. Yeah, my guy was like, I'm not doing this anymore. Like, if you want to get in this game, like, your car is up. So I think he got like maybe like 1,000 in this 10-20 limit game, lost all of it, and like the guy who's running the game, oh, that's too bad. He's like, well, I guess car now. So like, he literally took this. I can't even remember if he sold it or if he earned his way back to it. But when you're first getting into poker, like some of these things are like, that doesn't happen. Like, that's just crazy. And then like, see a guy literally lose like his really terrible used car.
Oh my gosh!
Never forget it. Share.
Bryce and I have been eyeing a few opportunities to get into commentating on our own. Are there any do's and don'ts that you would recommend to some first-time commentators who are hopping onto a stream?
I'm glad you asked that question, because I think there's a lot of people that are really smart about poker that will understand what the landscape of the hand is, how to analyze it, but you're also trying to put everything together and from going from spot to spot to spot to spot, and avoiding awkward silences, transitioning kind of smoothly, and staying on point, staying interactive. As far as for people, I just start to say by like, be yourself. Like, don't come up trying to be some version of yourself that you aren't really are. Like that as a newcomer. I have this literally written up on my board. So like, I just say this, like, focus on the necessary info, go down the potential paths the hand could or could not go. Look for some of the things that are uncommon going within the hand, and then stack up some lines that when you're going from hand to hand, if you want to talk about the room, if you want to talk about a story or an anecdote of like, hey, I was playing at the, I was playing at the Texas Card House 5, blah, 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 so that you can kind of have a timer in your head as to like how much time you need to be able to tell that story. And
I love that piece of advice.
That's so good. I love all of that.
A lot of it is pace too, because like when you're doing a poker broadcast, like it is, for me, it's like calling a baseball game. Like a baseball game is not full speed, blah, 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 blah. Like it's a very casual walking pace. So you don't want to burn yourself out by just totally rearing so much energy, and you've got the passion, and it's like 2 pair. Like you want to be steady as you go into it. And when the big moments happen, you get excited. You're like, yeah. Oh my God, I can't believe I saw that. And then back down, and it just stayed kind of on the level path. So,
those are a bunch of really good
to learn, but it's also like if you have transitions ready to go from spot to spot that you've written down and being like, okay, you can always check out our streams on Wednesdays at 5. And like, I've internalized it all. So every time there's a hand that stops, I already know in my head, I'm like, we've got this special, we've got this tournament, we've got this game, we've got subscribe to this, like that. Like, I don't need to pull up a piece of paper and go subscribe to our poker channel. We've got 15,000. Like
we call that
conscious competence. Like, I don't even know where some of this comes from. It just comes out after time once you've just put in the volume. So be as kind to yourself as humanly possible when you do it, and don't get too fixated on the chat because people are haters.
Yeah,
That's
no,
interesting.
I believe that.
Okay, yeah, so there's one of them. Are there any other don'ts? Because you gave us a bunch of really good do's. Are there other don'ts beyond not too much interacting with the Twitch chat?
I wouldn't say don't interact with the chat. Like, try to find valuable nuggets that somebody may have an opinion that you're like, hey, that's a valid thought as to like that's a line a player could have taken, or a question, or because you're using the chat to gauge the pulse of the poker crowd. So if you got people that, and especially when it was like Polk and Negreanu that were doing their thing, like I'm not totally gonna ignore it and just be like, all right, Big Daddy Chaz is 3, but like if it's got the pulse of the people that are watching, like if you talk about it in a way that makes sense, like people are probably gonna stick with it and enjoy it, versus like find as much that's going to be applicable to as many people as possible. I will personalize myself sometimes because I just know when the windows are to do it, but always try to keep it as available to what everybody is going to care about. And sometimes I wish I took my own advice on that, but that's probably for somebody just getting into it. Yeah, a fresh thought. So
No, that's awesome. That's definitely my favorite answer and question that we've had. I think a lot more goes behind commentating and having just a smooth stream than people realize. The last question I have for you is, I'm sure you're more knowledgeable on this topic than I am. We've seen sports card crazes, but this seems to be a new one. It seems to have taken the poker and gambling world by storm. Could you explain to me what NBA Top Shot is, if you're familiar with it?
I really don't know. They're like digital cards that I have tried to like understand it, and every day it seems like there's a new trend of something I don't understand that I'm like. But I mean, I think if you think, well, I mean, it's not that I think it's a bad thing. It's just sort of like I guess if I look at it in the way of like, if this is the future where all of our entities and our collectibles are now infinite within this space of digital and not necessarily in the physical, like, well, maybe if you're early in on something, that's the pristine. I don't get it. Like I got onto I was way more into cards, I think, when I was in like high school, beginning of college, and now I'm just so shocked it's had this kind of resurgence to a degree that I'm like, I keep trying to tell my dad, like, go through your cards, like there's gold buried in there.
Yeah, it's thousands of dollars worth. Yeah, it's crazy.
No,
Yeah, I never thought about opening up like my old.
It's a really interesting thing.
Stuff.
People want to collect stuff. Like it's
yeah, for sure.
I don't know. I think we're a little nostalgic too. Like it's now we're getting the new generation of players. So it's like if you love Ken Griffey Jr., you just sort of feel like your era of baseball is so kind of removed from what it is now that I think it's going that way across a lot of leagues where the people now that have some money, disposable income, are kind of going back into that mode.
Yeah, that's interesting. Sense. Yeah, I felt that way when Big Papi retired. That was like when I kind of lost connection with the Red Sox. But I'm curious, over the course of your sports and commentating career, is there a particular standout moment that you got to call? And maybe even this is particularly for the sports side. Did you ever get like a big call for a walk-off home run or a last-second goal, something like that?
There's, especially the last couple of years, have been some have been more like uniquely personal to me as far as the path I got to go. Like big moments in the biggest games. I've done like 400 games here in Austin, probably.
Wow.
So, or somewhere in the neighborhood of that by this point. So the ones that immediately stand out to me for the volleyball program at Lake Travis that I broadcast for, that rebuilding the program, that they're all committed, they're all trying to beat the rival Westlake, and they haven't done it in like 11 matches, and was getting to be like friendly with a lot of parents and families, and we all just sort of collectively felt like this mission to finally get over the hump, so to speak, and they went out and crushed them, and they ended the history of the program has shifted ever since then. Game winners, there or I've done like a state finals game at girls basketball in 4A. I've done some regional finals. I did a state probably the biggest one was state semi final volleyball and 6A with like 2 of the top 5 teams in the country, or at least within the state. So, and that was absurd because it's when you get to see the sport performed at its highest level, and you're like right there for it, going at touch and touch, you're just killing it. Like there's nothing like it. Like there really is no what's the word, flow that like I feel like I'm on purpose here. Yeah, there's been a lot of great walk-off home runs. Boy, those. And I always enjoy it more when I hear from the kids, or the grandparents, or the parents that are just like, they have something forever that they get to keep. Some people tell me, like, we still go back and we watch this game sometimes. Their kid might be a junior at college. So it's also kind of like a time capsule, I think, for a lot of families, is go down memory lane every now and again. So.
Yeah, that's amazing. I'm sure that's invaluable. So we're definitely going to make sure to plug your socials, but do you want to talk a little bit about how often you commentate? We'll make sure to plug TCH live stream as well. But when does the stream run? How long does it run? Could you give us a little background on that before we sign off?
Hey, if you guys have time, I'm more than happy to talk about the state of like streaming poker right now.
No, absolutely, yeah.
Well, I mean, there are a lot of new streams opening. And developing, and people are trying to find a brand. Like as far as for us, we're now at between Austin and TCH Dallas. We're streaming 6 nights a week for the actual show. I'm doing commentary on our Monday night 5-10 game, 5-10 uncapped. Our Sunday night WPT Step Series. It's most of the time, there are 3 of the Sundays, there's 7K guarantee freeze-out tournaments, which leads into a monthly main event, which is on the final Sunday of every month. It's like a 365 buy-in. It's like 335 and a 20K guarantee prize pool. And then I will do sometime if we have like a vlogger meetup or a special event, or sometimes if our other host here in McAvoy wants the night off on Thursday, I will host Thursdays. But typically, it is Sunday, Monday for TCH Live, and then Tuesday and Friday for Lake Travis Sports with Texan Live. So, and I sometimes will get a third. I mean, there's literally sometimes I'll have like 6 broadcasts a week, depending on the week. So
that's a busy week.
Soccer tomorrow.
Did you ever lose your voice?
Soccer. So, I mean, the really benefit about the pandemic was through May, I was getting work from all summer long that a lot of my people and peers really didn't get to have a chance. So, like, once we got back into action in September, like, I was ready to, like, go. So, long-winded question, but we stream 6 nights a week. I host commentate 2 to 3. And then 2 to 3 or 1 to 3 per week on the sports side. So I'm looking forward to June. I love it right now, but I'm gonna get some sleep, I think, during that month.
Yeah, it sounds like it's well earned, and sounds like you might need it a little bit. But you're staying busy, and that's awesome.
Too. So like it's ideal up there in the Texas Card House as well. So I have a full life here, guys. So
yeah, I mean, it sounds like you've made a name for yourself for sure. Yeah, that's awesome. Ryan, do you have any closing thoughts?
No, yeah, Mike, it has been a pleasure from climbing into your stream from the All In Poker podcast account and just saying, "Hey, Mike, we're here. We exist. You want to hop in for an interview?"
I'm happy to plug you guys because, like, I understand it's really tough to try to get your name out there, especially in a podcast format where it's a really competitive space, and there's a lot of people trying to captivate your attention. You're trying to come up with a product that it's like, yeah, come spend an hour with us. So I have no problem with that. I mean, TCH, we're at like 15,600 subscribers in like a year and a half. I think the only one bigger that I think that is in this specific format is Live at the Bike, which hey, I'm not here to mess with Live at the Bike. They've been at it for a really long time, and they've got their own special place, I think, within the industry, and they'll be back soon. And
I mean, to be named in the same sentence is awesome.
What's that?
To be named in the same sentence, like I think, like you said, you're the second most reputable stream.
I mean,
yeah, that gap is closed substantially because of the pandemic, I think.
Yeah, and a lot of other, I mean, it's really weird, unique because you had a lot more people deciding to stream too. So like you have individual players that now all have their own Twitch streams. So it's not even just become like live poker streams, which is like a niche part of the audience, but it's just like, I'm going to go watch Matt Berkey play for a tournament, and you'll get like 3,000 people like watching that kind of stuff. So there are a lot of other streams that are going through the bumps, and I'm kind of more proud of the fact that what we accomplished. I want to give a big shout out to Carolyn, super producer Carolyn Hapgood, really the backbone behind this, that really extremely steady to the point that it's like we have a very consistent product always because of her. But you know, the live streams, they saw what we did and said, this is what players want. They want their own room and their own table to host games and put it up on a stream. And yeah, some are starting to see some results, and some are still trying to find their way and figure it out. So I wish best luck to some of the other commentators out there. That I make it look easy because I came from a background that had me ready to go. Whereas if you're just a guy and a mic or a dealer or something like that, there's a learning curve. And you know, I'm not going to be there to hate on anybody who's trying to go on that, but don't take any shots at us. I kid.
You've given us some of the keys to the castle. I'm going to be honest. A lot of those tips are game changers and things that I think Bryce and I, who have been looking into doing this, didn't think about. So invaluable information.
Yeah, and I mean it's all about applying it too, and it's like if you find a way to be funny with it, and like as long as you're genuinely enjoying it and you're not, you know, trying to seek a laugh and just relax, and sometimes you need to have a little whiskey on that if you're doing a poker live. I don't mess with that on the sports side at the Stone Sober, but it's like every once in a while, if
we're gambling, you know,
like it's not the worst idea to help you loosen up. Poker's
liquid courage.
Yeah. I mean, Poker Go probably won't hire you right on the spot, but it's there's I can talk about it all day, to be honest, but I don't feel like I'm giving away secrets, but it's I'm glad to have an amateur to share some info.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We very much appreciated having you on. And when I make it out your way, I'll buy you a beer and hopefully be on a stream that you're commentating on.
Yeah.
So looking forward to it. But thank you again. We will hopefully be in touch. And thanks for coming on.
Thanks, guys.
All right, you have a good one.
You too.
You guys make sure to smash that like and subscribe button. I don't know if I've released it yet, but I've told a lot of you guys. Next week we have Johnny Vibes on next Wednesday. I'm very excited about that. Make sure to tune in. It will be next Wednesday at the usual time, 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 CST. But yeah, make sure to like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. And we will see you next week. If you would like to play in the 1-2 games that you saw Ryan's been crushing, feel free to hit me up on Bad Beat Bryce on Instagram, Telegram, wherever, even in the comments, and I will get back to you. You guys have a great night. Signing off. We will see you next week.
See ya.